we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Dave, and I am one of the owners and operators of Homeschool Tracker. And just want to spend just a second just to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know there are a lot of different ways you could be spending your Tuesday evening, so we really appreciate you taking some time to learn a little bit more about Homeschool Tracker and how you can use it the most effectively in your homeschool. Our mission here at Homeschool Tracker really is two things. One is to provide you with the tools to be more effective in your homeschool, but then the other is really to give you the support and the training so that you can use those tools most effectively. And that's what webinars like tonight are really all about, educating you and answering your questions and just really kind of being there to help support you as you're going through your homeschool journey. So a few quick housekeeping things before we get started. One is that we are recording this, so we will certainly send a replay of the recording as soon as it's available to each and every one of you. And then also, we will have plenty of time at the end for questions. I'm happy to stay on as late as needed to answer all of your questions. So definitely feel free to submit those, and we'll be sure to get to them. Okay, so let's spend just a few seconds here to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover tonight. So one thing that we'll start off with is really where to find help. So if you've been using Homeschool Tracker for any amount of time, you probably noticed that it's a very deep and feature-rich program. So we want to give you the best resources so that you can find help if you ever are running into trouble. The second thing that we'll cover is we'll just do a quick interface tour, kind of run through the menu and where you can find things in Homeschool Tracker. Then we'll talk about subjects and courses and the difference between the two and how to set those up in your account. Then we'll dive into assignments, which are really the heart of all of your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. Then we'll talk about lesson plans, which are a really popular feature that can help you save a lot of time. And then we'll discuss reports, including the daily task list. And we'll talk about report cards and transcripts as well. And then we'll talk about workflows. And what I mean by workflows is really just how you would use Homeschool Tracker on a day-to-day basis. So what are you doing each and every day within Homeschool Tracker? How might you use it within your homeschool? And we'll cover a number of those different workflows throughout the evening, but we'll definitely circle back at the end to kind of cover those again. And then, like I mentioned, we'll have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So we'll run for about, I'd say about an hour, and then I'm happy to stay on as late as necessary to answer all of your questions. Okay, so first off, where to find help? So I would say the best place to learn about Homeschool Tracker and to find help are webinars just like this. So we do these about once a month or so during the school year, and you can always find out when the next one is if you go to our website. It's just at homeschooltracker.com. Then go up to the support tab and then click on Training Center. And you'll come to this page here, and you can see all the upcoming training events here. So this is tonight's event right here. And then if you wanted to view any replays of previous events, you can certainly check these out as well. So, we do this kind of getting started with Homeschool Tracker webinar once a month or so. And then we also did recently a lesson planning webinar specifically on lesson planning. So if you're just starting out and you want to learn more about lesson planning, I definitely recommend checking that out because we cover a lot of really great tips and techniques about lesson planning in that webinar. But like I said, this is really probably the best way to learn the ins and outs of the program and to have all of your questions answered. The next place I would recommend would be our Getting Started tutorial videos. You can get to those by going to our help site. So just at help.homeschooltracker.com, this is our main help site. And right here at the top are our Getting Started video guide. It's 11 parts, and each one of these videos is just a couple minutes. Altogether, you could probably watch all of them in about 30 minutes or so. And these are a great resource because you can kind of jump straight to the specific thing that you're looking for and just get a quick tutorial just by clicking on the video that you're interested in. And then I would also recommend this help site as another great resource. So this help site here is set up kind of like a reference guide. So you can see kind of the index of all of the different topics covered here. But one little trick that I like to show folks is that when you are in Homeschool Tracker, so here I am in the program, let's just go to, let's say, the calendar view real quick. From any page or any screen within Homeschool Tracker, if you click on the help link up here in the top right, that will take you directly to the corresponding help page within the help guide. So here is the help page for the agenda calendar view. And on this page, you have anything and everything you ever wanted to know about that specific page, so the calendar view, and all of the links that kind of go off to relevant areas of the help site. The other place that, or the other kind of tip I would recommend for the help site is just using the search box here. So for example, if I wanted to learn more about days off, I could just search for that within the help site and quickly just jump straight to the page on creating days off within Homeschool Tracker. And so now I can learn all about how to set those up within the program. So definitely take advantage of this help guide. Like I said, it's more of a reference guide. So clicking the help link within the program will take you right to the place you want to go, or using the search box here will certainly kind of get you where you need to go. And then finally, last but not least, I recommend email. You can always email us at support@homeschooltracker.com, and we answer each and every email that we receive, usually within 1 to 2 business days, and quite often much quicker than that. So definitely feel free to email us with any questions you might have at support@homeschooltracker.com. Okay, so let's jump into the interface. So I'm going to close some of these tabs here and jump back to Homeschool Tracker. So from the main menu of Homeschool Tracker, you'll notice that it's broken up into 5 different sections. You have schedules and planning, students, reports, manage lists, and your account. So starting up here in the top left under the schedules and planning section of the menu, we have what we call the agenda, and that's set up both in calendar view as well as list view, and we'll cover that in a little bit. This is also where you'll find your lesson plans, as well as the shared lesson plan library. Below that is the students section of the menu. This is where everything related to specific students is located. So you have your main student list where you can create, edit, delete students. This is where you can set the grade levels for those students. This is where the grading overview is, which is where you can see each and every grade that student earned over a given period of time. This is also where the lesson plans and presets page is, which we'll cover a little bit later. And then the transcript supplemental is here as well. That's where you can add additional information that would be added onto your student's transcript. The middle section of the menu is the reports section, and each of these reports can be generated as a PDF file, which you can then print, email, or send, or save, excuse me. And you'll find things like the attendance report or a course list report, the daily task list, which we'll talk about later, report cards and transcripts are all right here in the reports section of the menu. And then the top right section of the menu is what we call the Manage Lists section. And this is really more of a maintenance area, if you may. And what I mean by that is that you're probably not going to be in and out of these different screens on a day-to-day basis. This is where you go to add, edit, or delete specific items within the program. So, for example, each one of these items is a different list of items. So for example, the activities list, this is where all of your activities are listed. So things like a quiz or a lesson or a test, chore names, so all the names of their chores like walk the dog or clean your room, those are all here. All of your courses are listed here. The different grading skills that you're using are all listed here. So that's why I really kind of refer to it more as a maintenance area, because this is where, for example, if I wanted to go create a new grading scale, I would go in here and create it, and then I probably am never going to touch it again, right? So that's why it's more of a maintenance area. But it's good to know what's here and what to expect. And then the lower right section of the menu, this is the Your Account section. This is where you'll find the program options, your school profile, and then the subscription and users page, which is where you can modify your subscription settings, change your payment information, create user accounts, that sort of thing. So that's just a quick overview of the menu. Now, your menu may look slightly different than this one. It all depends on which options you have turned on or off within the program options. So for example, if I had different optional fields turned on, I might have different reports available and vice versa. So don't freak out if yours looks a little bit different than mine, because it will all just depend on what aspects of the program you're using. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about subjects and courses and the difference between the two. So within Homeschool Tracker, we refer to subjects. These are really broad areas of study, things like math, language arts, history, or science. And courses, those are specific areas of study within a subject. So for example, a course might be called Algebra 2, which would fall underneath the subject of math. Or a course might be called Composition 1, which would fall under the subject of language arts. Or a course might be Physical Science 1, which would fall under the subject of science. Now, this seems pretty basic, but it's important to understand the difference between the two, because how you set those up within a Homeschool Tracker will really set you up for success in terms of how you're organizing things within the program. So let's take a look at how this plays out within the program. So let's jump over to the subjects list. So like I said, this section of the menu is really kind of that maintenance area. And so we want to go ahead and take a look at all of our subjects. Now, right away, you'll see I have 4 subjects in here: history, language arts, math, and science. Now, remember, subjects are really just those broad areas of study. So there's not really a lot of settings or different things that I'm going to change in here necessarily. But if I wanted to create more subjects, I certainly could. You would simply click on Action and then choose Add, give your subject a name, and click Save. But otherwise, you'll notice that there's not really a lot going on here. So like, for example, if I open up history just by double-clicking on it, I could change it to from a core to an elective subject. I see the courses that are part of that subject here. I can make it inactive or active, but otherwise not a whole lot going on. Now, if we look at our courses, so I'll go to the main menu here and then click on the course list. You'll notice right away that not only do I have more courses than I do subjects, but there's also a lot more information here, because again, courses are much more specific areas of study, meaning that you can also have different settings for those courses. So for example, if I look at Ancient History 1 right here, you'll see that the name of this course is Ancient History 1, the subject is history. I can choose if I want it to be worth a specific number of credit units, how I want those credit units to be calculated, what grading scale I'm going to use, if I want to use weighted grading. All of these settings are available at the course level. And remember, because a course is a specific area of study within a subject, it is also assigned a subject. So you kind of have this hierarchy where you have your subjects kind of at the high level, and then within those subjects, you might have specific courses. Now, in the average Homeschool Tracker account, you might have anywhere from, say, 4 to 10 subjects, but you could literally have hundreds of courses, because as you can imagine, as you go through your homeschool career and your kids are taking multiple courses per semester, per quarter, those courses all kind of add up, and by the time they're in high school, they may have you may have created hundreds of courses within your Homeschool Tracker account, but you might still only have a handful of subjects, because each one of those courses kind of falls under a broad subject. So let's go ahead and create a new course while we're in here. I'm just going to click on Action and choose Add, and I'm going to give this course a name. I'm going to call it Reading 1. Oops. And for subject, this is going to fall under language arts. So put in language arts, and I'm going to stop right there, because as you probably noticed, as I was typing, language arts popped up here. And that's because this is what's called a smart entry field. And you'll find these throughout the program. What they do is basically, as you're typing, the smart entry field is searching that corresponding list, in this case, the subjects list, for anything that matches what I'm typing. So when I type in language arts pops up so that I can choose the right subject. Now, if I don't know the subject that I want, I can simply enter in a blank space, and I can see a list of all the subjects. And so I can choose language arts there. Okay, so now I'm going to keep everything else the default, just because I don't need to change those right now. And I'll click Save. And then I'll just refresh this. And now you'll see I have a new course, Reading 1, which is part of the subject language arts, and these are all the settings for it. So this course now is ready to go, and we can go ahead and use that within our assignments. So let's jump back here. Now, a few things to kind of keep in mind. I would not recommend using the exact same name for both a subject and a course. So for example, if you had a subject called language arts, I would not recommend having a course called language arts also, because you would get confused and you wouldn't necessarily know which was which. And again, remember that the course has to be more specific than the subject. So in our case, we created a course called Reading 1. It could be freshman reading, it could be Reading 101, it could be whatever you want, but it has to be a specific thing. Whereas the subject, again, just can be kind of that broad container. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that if you see a slash that shows the break between subject/course. And if you don't see that slash, then you're just looking at a subject. So I'll show you what this means because it's a little confusing unless you see it. So I'm going to jump over to our agenda real quick. And I'll just create a new assignment. And now, right here, you'll notice that as I'm creating a new assignment, I have one field here for subject/course. Now, we do this basically to save space and to just make things a little faster, but it's important to know that rather than having, a separate field for subject and then a separate field for course, we essentially have them combined into this subject/course field. So again, this is a smart entry field. But if I just hit the space bar, I'll see a list of all of my subjects and courses kind of in one combined list. So for example, this is history, and this is just the subject of history. Right below that is history/ancient history 1. So that is the course Ancient History 1 because I'm looking at both the subject and the course, and that's what that slash means. So if I select that, I'm selecting the subject course Ancient History 1. If I were to just select history, then I would be selecting just the subject of history. So just important to keep that in mind as you'll start to see that throughout the program. Okay, so we're cruising right along. Let's talk about assignments now. So assignments are really the schoolwork tasks that we give our students to complete. So anything that you physically assign to your student would be an assignment. So that could be a lesson, it could be a quiz, it could be a test, it could be a field trip. Literally anything that you want to assign your student and keep track of over time and possibly give a grade or mark it complete or anything like that, we consider that an assignment. And we do that because assignments within Homeschool Tracker, these are really the heart of all of your record keeping. So assignments are right here in the middle, and they could come from a couple different places. You could create them individually or in a series, or they can come from a lesson plan, and when you run the scheduler of that lesson plan, it will create assignments. And now assignments are really the heart of all your record keeping because as you keep track of those assignments, as you grade them, as you mark them complete, all of these things can come out of those assignments. So for example, you can generate report cards and transcripts from assignments. You can generate attendance records from assignments using the auto attendance feature. You can create the daily task list to know what you need to be doing every day. And all of those other additional reports that you saw, those are generally all created because of assignments. So this is a basic assignment entry form, and we actually just kind of looked at this briefly. But each assignment requires a student, a subject/course, and a date. Now, those are the only 3 required fields, but all of these other optional fields, certainly the more information you put into the assignment, the more you can get out of it at the end. So for example, you'll have the subject course, the activity field, which is where you would specify the activity. That can be like a lesson or a quiz or a test. A resource. A resource is simply an item from your library that you've designated a resource. So a book or a workbook would go there. PLC stands for page, lesson, chapter. So this is where you could put text like page 48 through 52 or lesson 2 or whatever you want in that field. There's a directions field, which allows rich text editing for all of the directions that you want to enter. You can set start and end times if you like to keep track of times. Points possible and points earned. This is where you would enter your grades. Time spent, if that's important for you, you can enter time spent in there, or it can automatically be calculated based off of your start and end times. You can choose whether or not you want that assignment to be able to be rescheduled or not. And then you can mark it complete both as a teacher or as a student or both. Now, when an assignment is marked complete by a teacher, a number of things can happen. So attendance can be recorded if you're using automatic attendance. Grades are generated. Time spent can be calculated. And all of those reports can be generated. So that's why it's so important to understand that assignments, again, are really the heart of all of your record keeping. And when you mark those complete as a teacher, that's really the trigger that allows you to generate all of those reports and keep track of everything. So we're going to do a little bit of demo on assignments now. What we'll do is we'll create single and multiple assignments. We'll add grades to them and we'll mark them complete. And we'll do that both from the calendar view as well as the list view. So I'm going to jump back here to Homeschool Tracker. And from the main menu, I'm going to jump to the agenda calendar view. Now, remember, the agenda is really just that. It's the list of everything that is on your calendar, essentially. And so I'm in the calendar view right now, and it looks kind of like any calendar you might be familiar with. And what I'll do is let's go ahead and just create a single assignment. So I'm going to click up here on Add and choose Assignment Single. Now, this is that same entry form that we looked at earlier. And what I'll do is I'll choose a student. I'm going to choose my daughter, Campbell. And then I need a subject course. So again, this is a smart entry field, so I can just hit the space bar. And I'll choose Ancient History 1. And then for activity, I'm going to call this a lesson. And again, another smart entry field. So I can just start typing that in, or I can hit the space bar to see a list of all of my activities. Resource, again, this is searching my library for anything that I've designated as a resource. So I can see all the books that I have in my library. I'm just going to choose this one for now. PLC, I'll call this lesson 1. And then the date, we'll choose today. Let's create a start time of 9 a.m. and an end time of 10 a.m. We'll make this worth 10 points. Okay, so let's go ahead and click Save. So there you go. Now I have an assignment for Campbell for Ancient History 1. It's a lesson, and we're doing lesson 1 from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. today. So there you go. Pretty simple. I was able to create a single assignment. If I double click on it, I can get a preview of it here. And if I click on More, I can go back in here and edit everything. So let's say now it's the end of the day, and I want to go in and I want to grade this assignment. Again, I can just double click on it, and I'll choose More. And let's say Campbell got a 9 out of 10 on this. And so now I'm going to go ahead and mark it complete. And so once I've checked that box for teacher complete, you'll notice that it calculated my grade of 90%. And if I go ahead and click on Save, a few things just happened. So for one, the assignment got a little bit darker in color just to show me that it was marked complete. And also this purple Campbell present showed up here at the top. This is an attendance record. So I happen to have automatic attendance enabled right now, which basically says that if I have a completed assignment on a given day, it's going to assume that my student was present that day, and it's just going to create an automatic attendance record for her as well, so I don't have to do it separately. Obviously, I can change that in the program options. I can turn that on or off or change how it's calculated, but it is a nice feature to have, just so that I don't have to think about attendance as a separate thing. So there you go. That was creating a single assignment, grading it, and marking it complete. And now, when we think about workflows and how you might do this on a day-to-day basis, there are plenty of folks out there that each and every day they go in and they create the assignments for their students, go about their day, and then at the end of the day can kind of go in, or maybe during the day, go in and grade those assignments and mark them complete. You could do that the morning of, you could do it the night before, however you want to do it. The other thing that I see a lot of folks do is they do this kind of in reverse, meaning, like, let's say, for example, you're an unschooler, or you might not know exactly what you're going to be doing that day, but you could go in at the end of the day and just create assignments for all of the things that you did do that day, or that your student did that day, and essentially create a log. And kind of like we're doing now, let's say Campbell did have Ancient History 1 this morning, and I'm doing it now at 8:30 at night, just kind of adding all the things that she did do and marking them complete and giving them grades. Now, Homeschool Tracker then becomes really a great record-keeping tool and less of a planning tool, but that's okay, because as long as I'm keeping track of everything here, whether it's to be done or is done, the result is the same, meaning that I can still generate a report at the end of the year, or I can look at and see where we're at any time by keeping track of these things as we go. So I see a lot of folks doing that now, where especially if, for example, let's say you have another system that you like maybe it's a binder, or you're working out of a predefined curriculum that you bought off the shelf or something. You might not need to put all that stuff in here ahead of time, but you certainly could keep track of it here as your student completes that work, or as you work through the year. So just different ways that you can use Homeschool Tracker, really. And that's really the beauty of it. There's so many different tools and features in here, and so it's really up to you to determine how you want to use it on a day-to-day basis, and to decide what it is you really want to get out of it. So just a couple little different workflows for you there. if you were curious. So we've gone ahead and we've created one single assignment, but let's go ahead and create a series of assignments. So what we'll do is we'll choose Add Assignment Multiple. And what we get here is the Add Multiple Assignments wizard, essentially. So we call it a wizard because you kind of step through these different steps here to get what you're looking for. But what we can do is we can create more than one assignment at a time. So first off, I can choose what students this is for. And that's the nice thing right there, is that I could create assignments for multiple students at once using this tool. In this case, I'm just going to create assignments for Campbell. And then for subject course, I'll choose Ancient History again, and we'll call these lessons. We'll just pick one of these resources here. And again, we'll do from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And these will each be worth 10 points. And then we'll continue to day and date, which just kind of moves us ahead in the wizard. And let's say we want these to happen every day. And I want it to start, today is the 29th, let's have it start tomorrow. And then I have two options here: continue creating items until PLC pattern is exhausted, or continue creating items until a specific end date. I'm going to choose this first option so I can show you what that means. And then I'll continue to PLC. Now remember, PLC stands for Page Lesson Chapter. And when you think about Page Lesson Chapter within assignments, it's probably pretty rare that you'll have a series of assignments that have all the same PLC, right? They're not all going to say lesson 1 necessarily. They might increment and say lesson 1, then lesson 2, then lesson 3, lesson 4, etc. So when we're creating multiple assignments, we have the ability to have that automatically increment as we create those assignments. So I can choose to have the same PLC for each version, or I can do a 1-part, 2-part, or 3-part auto increment. I'm going to choose a 1-part, and I can specify what I want the leading text to be. So the leading text is really just the beginning text of the PLC. So you might have something like pages or lesson. I'm just going to choose lesson. And I'm going to say lesson starts with 2, because we already created lesson 1 with that single assignment. And I'm going to end with, let's say, lesson 4, right? Yeah, because I'm going to start on Wednesday, 2, 3, 4, yeah. And we'll increment by 1. Okay, so this will make sense here in just a second. So basically, I'm starting with lesson 2, and I'm ending with lesson 4, and I'm incrementing by 1. So if I continue to preview, this is what it's going to do. It's going to create 3 assignments, one for Wednesday of lesson 2, the next one for Thursday, lesson 3, and then the next one for Friday, lesson 4. And we call this a preview because it's just giving me a quick preview of what it's going to create. It hasn't actually created it yet. If I wanted to make any changes, I can click back here to these tabs and make changes and then go back. But this looks good to me. I'll make sure I have them all selected, and then I'll choose Accept Selected Items. And when I do that, it's going to actually go ahead and create them. So I'll go ahead and do that. And there you go. Now we have 3 more assignments, and you'll notice that they automatically increment from lesson 2, lesson 3, and then lesson 4 for the rest of the week. And so thinking about workflow again, a lot of folks do this at the beginning of the week. For example, they might go ahead and create on Sunday night their series of assignments for the week for each of their different courses, and then go about their week and check things off as you go or at the end of the week. So just another way to be able to create multiple assignments at once. Now, before we move on to the list view, I want to just kind of give you a quick overview of the calendar here. It behaves pretty much like any other calendar you might be familiar with. Up here at the top, this is the Add button, which we saw earlier, and you can add all of your different types of items here. These blue tabs, these are all filters, meaning they can filter what it is you're looking at on the calendar. So, for example, if I only wanted to see specific students, I could choose them here. If I only wanted to see specific types of items, I could choose them here. So for example, if I didn't want to see attendance records, I could turn that off, and now I don't see attendance. Turn it back on. I can choose if I want to see just incomplete items or complete items or everything. And I can choose if I want to just see specific subjects or courses as well. Below that is an Export to PDF button. So this is really handy if you wanted to print this out or send it to somebody. You can simply click on Export to PDF, and in just a second it'll download a PDF file, And this is a PDF file of my calendar that I can now print out or send along. Now below that is the Today button that takes you to today's date, and then you can navigate forward and backward using these buttons. Over here, these change the view, so I can look at one day at a time, 1 week at a time, the work week, the entire month, an agenda list, which is basically like a sequential list, or a timeline view, which is like a horizontal timeline. And then here at the bottom, this says Show Full Day. So if I click on that, it shows the entire day starting at midnight and ending at midnight. If I wanted to just show school hours, I would click on that again, and now I just show my school hours. Now the school hours are set up in the program options. I happen to have mine from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but you can certainly change yours however you like. So that's a quick overview of the calendar view. So let's jump over to the list view now. So again, the agenda, it's the same agenda. You know, it's all the same stuff. It's the same assignments. It's the same attendance records. It's all the same data. We just present it in two different views, a calendar view and then the list view. And they each have their different pros and cons in terms of what it is you're trying to accomplish. So let's jump over to the list view and see what that shows us. So again, it's the same data, but it's presented differently so that you can manipulate it in a different way. So real quick here, just to kind of give you an overview of this screen, on the left here, these are all those filters, kind of similar to the blue tabs at the top of the calendar. So I can change the date range that I'm looking at. I can choose what students I want to see here, the types of items, etc. The middle section here, this is the data itself. So this is kind of like a grid of all of the information that we're currently viewing. You'll notice that we see 4 assignments here, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you look at the PLC, it's lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4. This last item here, this is that attendance record for today. And the nice thing about this view is you can see all of this data all at once. So if you remember on the calendar view, you can really just see kind of a brief snippet of what each item is. Here, I can see everything. You know, I can see the start and end times. I can see if there's grades, etc. So that's really handy to be able to kind of get a quick snapshot of what's going on. Now, the other thing about the list view that's handy is that you can edit more than one item at a time. So if I select these 3 assignments, for example, I can choose Action, Multi-Edit. And now I can edit these and have those edits apply to all 3 items. So for example, let's go ahead and grade these. So I'm going to give her an 8 out of 10 on all of them, and I'm going to mark them complete as well, and then click Save. Excuse me. So there you go. Now I can see that each one of these was marked complete, the teacher complete here, and then they each have a grade of 80%. Now, the other thing that happened is it created attendance records for each one of those because, again, I have automatic attendance enabled. So really powerful tool here to be able to manipulate your assignments or your attendance records or whatever it is in a really powerful way. The other thing I'll point out within the list view are these columns here. So each one of these columns obviously shows a different field. You can enable or disable different columns by clicking on Options and then choose columns. Right now I have most of them enabled, but you could add more or take some off if you want. You can also sort by column. So you'll notice I have things sorted by type right now. Flip that around. I can sort the other way, or I can turn that off. And you'll see now it's just kind of the default is by date, essentially. So everything's kind of grouped by date now. And then the other nice thing you can do with the columns is you can group by column. So if I took this type column here and just dragged it up to this section, now I've grouped everything by item type. So all my assignments are here and all my attendance records are here. So really just, again, just different ways that you can manipulate the data to kind of work with it in different ways. One nice thing is if you have more than one student, you can group by student. You know, so I could have all of Campbell's items here and all of another student's items here, and just kind of keep things organized that way. So that's just a quick overview of the list view. All right, so let's recap here. We created single and multiple assignments. we did added grades to them and we marked them complete. And we did that both from the calendar view as well as the list view. Alrighty. So let's jump now to lesson plans. Now, lesson plans are a very popular tool within Homeschool Tracker, but I will stress that they are entirely optional. I personally use lesson plans. And I think they do save a lot of time, and they can really allow you to be very organized and that sort of thing. But I would caution folks from just kind of diving into lesson plans without really understanding Homeschool Tracker yet, or using it for very long, because it's certainly kind of a more advanced feature within Homeschool Tracker. Let's put it that way. But let's talk a little bit about lesson plans. So lesson plans are really a sequence of items that have not yet been scheduled as assignments. Now, what that means is that you can essentially plan everything out for an entire curriculum using lesson plan items and creating a lesson plan. And so this is perfect if you want to plan everything out in detail all at once, or if you have like a predefined curriculum, like you bought some curriculum off the shelf and you already know kind of what comes next, and so you just want to put it all together in a lesson plan. Now, the nice thing about lesson plans is that it means they're not tied to a particular student. So they're not just for Campbell, for example. They're just kind of generic. And then I can schedule them for Campbell. So that means that you can reuse them over and over again throughout your homeschooling career. So if my oldest student uses a lesson plan for freshman biology, for example, my younger students can use that same lesson plan when they get to that course. So I don't have to recreate all of those items again. The other nice thing is that these can be shared or imported using our shared lesson plan library. So our shared lesson plan library currently has over 1,000 lesson plans in it. The majority of them are based off of off-the-shelf curriculum. So this is also great if you're part of a group or a co-op and you're working through similar curriculum. You can create lesson plans for each other and share them with your group. So let's do a quick demo of lesson plans. What we'll do is we'll see an example lesson plan. We'll create a simple one. And we'll import one from the shared library. And then we'll schedule a lesson plan and discuss using presets as well. So first off, let's just see an example lesson plan. So if I go up to the main menu and go to lesson plan. Now, if you don't have any lesson plans yet, you obviously won't be able to see an example one, but I happen to have some in here. So I'm going to open up this Abeka Arithmetic first grade lesson plan. And what you'll notice first from this screen is that it looks a lot like the agenda list view. So you have your filters here on the left, you have the items here in the middle, all those same columns, and it behaves in the same way as well. So try to keep things consistent in that you kind of are already familiar with this interface. So what you'll see here are a sequence of items. In this case, there are 202 items. And each one of these is a lesson plan item. So if I open one of these, you'll notice that it looks a lot like an assignment, but it's missing a few things, right? It doesn't have a student. It doesn't have a date. And that's the beauty of a lesson plan item. It's not tied to a particular student, and it's not even scheduled on the agenda yet, so it doesn't have a date. What it is it's basically, you can think of it almost like a template, right? So in this case, I have an entire course or entire year's worth of lesson plan items for this first grade arithmetic course. And I like to visualize it. So like imagine you had a stack of papers on your desk, and the first one at the top was lesson 1, and then below that was lesson 2, lesson 3, and lesson 4. And you just have them there, and it's already organized, and it's in the order that you want, but they're just sitting on your desk. You haven't used them yet. When it's time to use them, you can literally take the one off the top, lesson 1, and you can hand it to your student, kind of virtually, and say, okay, Campbell, here's lesson 1, go and do that. And then when she's done with that and it's time for lesson 2, you can take the next one off and kind of give it to her and say, okay, now do lesson 2. And so that's really the beauty of lesson plans, is it kind of allows you to create this sequence ahead of time without having to schedule it on your calendar yet, because you never really know. That's the beauty with homeschooling, is that you never really know when you're going to get to lesson 6. You just don't know that lesson 6 is going to happen on November 29th. You just know that lesson 6 comes after lesson 5 and before lesson 7, right? So that's really the fun part of using lesson plans. So this lesson plan, you'll see that Basically, it has 11 days of lessons. It goes lesson 1 through 11, days 1 through 11. And then on day 12, looks like there's a test that's worth 100 points. And also on day 12, there's another test, also worth 100 points. Then it goes back to lessons for a few more days and then another test. And this continues on. This sequence continues on for 171 days. So an entire school year's worth of lessons is already ready to go. So that's what a lesson plan looks like. Let's go ahead and create a simple one so we can see how to do that. So I'll click on Add and choose Add. Let's do Add Multiple. And first off, it's going to ask me for what lesson plan I want to create items for. In this case, it's defaulting to the one that we were just looking at, but I don't want to add items to that. I want to create a new plan. So instead, I will just put in a new name here, sample plan. And we'll make this for Ancient History 1. And these will be lessons. And we'll pick a resource. And you'll notice this looks a lot like the Add Multiple Assignments wizard because, again, it's very similar. Now I'll continue to day numbers. And I'm going to start on day 1, and I'll increment by 1. Then I'll continue to PLC. And again, we'll do a 1-part auto increment here. And we'll start with lesson 1, and we'll end with lesson 10. And we'll increment by 1. So we're just kind of keeping it simple. And then we'll continue to preview. And so here's a preview of my items that I'm about to create. I have 10 days, 1 through 10, and they are lessons 1 through 10. So let's go ahead and select all of those and then choose Accept to create them. Okay, so now I just need to load up that sample plan. And there we go. I have a simple 10-day lesson plan with lessons 1 through 10 ready to go. What I want to do now, let's say I want to add a quiz or a test at the end of this. I'll just choose Adds. Oops, I hit the wrong one there. I'll choose Add Single, and we will create a test. We'll make that worth 10 points. And we'll click Save. And you'll notice that that went to the top of the list here because I didn't put a day number. So it defaults to day 0. So let's go ahead and make that for day 11. And there you go. So now I have 10 days of lessons. Oops, 10 days of lessons. And then on the 11th day, we take a test. So very quickly, I was able to create 11 items for this lesson plan. And, you know, I could certainly keep chipping away at this and you know, creating a pattern or, you know, another 160 items for my entire school year. And again, if you are interested in lesson plans, I definitely recommend checking out that lesson planning webinar that we did because we show you a number of really time-saving techniques for creating these plans, particularly like if let's say you bought an off-the-shelf curriculum and it comes with a lesson plan or like a guide, you can essentially recreate that guide within Homeschool Tracker so that you can follow along with it. And we show you different ways to do that in a way that's really effective and quick. So definitely check that out. So there you go, a quick lesson plan created. Let's now take a look at the shared lesson plan library. So I'm going to click on shared lesson plans here. And if I want to see a list of all of them, I'll just click on Go. And you'll notice that I can just start scrolling here. There are tons of shared lesson plans in here. Last I checked, there are over 1,000. And you'll notice that most of them are based off the shelf curriculum. And so again, these are just created by other users like you. So they'll, you know, folks will add a little bit of description here on what it is. You can always click on it to preview it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and search up here for reading. And I'm going to pick this Usborne First Reading Level 1 plan. So if I click on that, I get a preview of it here. And I can see this is a 15-day lesson plan. So there's 15 items. And, you know, someone took the time to create all of this. So I'm going to import it into my account. So I'll choose Prepare for Import. And first thing I need to do is give it a name. So I'll call it reading 1. And then I want to I want to select the items that I want to import. In this case, I want to select all of them. But before I go ahead and import them, I want to make a change because I noticed that the subject course is just language arts, which, as we talked about before, that means it's just the subject, language arts. I want to assign this to the course reading 1 that we created earlier. Now, I certainly could import this and change it later, but I can also change it now. So I'll choose Action, Multi-Edit, and I can change the subject course to language arts / reading 1, and then click Save. And there you go. Now they're all changed and it's ready for import. You'll also notice this asterisk and then the new right here. What that means is it basically says that that item does not exist in your account. And so when you import it, we're going to create it for that corresponding list, which is great. So I don't have to do that on my own. So I'll go ahead and choose Accept. And there you have it. Now I have that lesson plan in my account. I'm looking at it right here. So that's how you would import a lesson plan from the shared lesson plan library. So now that you have these lesson plans, how do you actually use them? How do you schedule them? Let's go ahead and show you how to do that. So for example, here we've got this reading 1 plan. Let's say I want to schedule the first 5 days. So the first week of this plan, let's say. I'm going to go ahead and select days 1 through 5 and choose Action Scheduler. Now I can choose who I want to schedule these for. I can do one or both. I'm going to choose Campbell in this case, and I'll continue to day and date. And I want these to happen every day. I could also choose like I only want them to happen Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something like that, but I want to just do every day. And I'm going to choose 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm going to have the start date be yesterday, actually, just so I can fill up this week. Because remember, I selected 5 of them. And then I will continue until all selected items in the lesson plan are used. So in this case, it's 5. And I'll go ahead and preview. And so there you go. I've got 5 days here. And so basically, day 1 is now going to happen on Monday. Day 2 is going to happen on Tuesday. Day 3, Wednesday, etc. And so this is really where a lesson plan item becomes an assignment, right? Because as you remember, lesson plan items are not assignments because they don't have a student and they don't have a date. But now that I'm scheduling these, I'm attaching a student to it, and I'm attaching a specific date and time as well. And so now it's going to create assignments out of those lesson plan items. So remember how I said that the lesson plan items are kind of like a template? It's basically taking all that information and creating an assignment out of it. So I'm going to select all of those and then choose Accept. And now I'll take a look at our agenda. And there you have it. Days 1 through 5 are now Monday through Friday. And you'll notice each one of these is different because this was day 1 of that lesson plan. This was day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. And you can even open it up and kind of see all the information here. And it's ready to go. So again, back to workflows. A lot of folks have their lesson plans already created. And then at the beginning of the week, so let's say on a Sunday night, they'll go in and schedule their week ahead just by doing what we just did there and kind of get their weekly agenda ready to go and then go about their week. One thing I would caution folks is that, there's this temptation, I think, to go ahead and schedule your entire year all at once. Like you've created that 180-day lesson plan and I just want to schedule it for the whole year. I would caution against that, mainly because it limits you or makes it a little bit harder to reschedule things. You can always add things later, and it's much easier to move around just a week's worth of items or 2 weeks worth of items versus trying to shuffle an entire year's worth of items. So we tend to recommend only scheduling 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. And that just gives you more flexibility. If you end up speeding up or if you slow down or whatever it is, you can quickly and easily kind of manage that without having to schedule or moving an entire year's worth of items around. Okay, so that's how you schedule a lesson plan. And that's kind of what I call the basic scheduler, meaning, you went into the lesson plan, you selected the items, and you clicked on schedule. There's also a more advanced scheduler out there that I want to show you now. So if we go to lesson plans and presets, what this feature does, it allows you to schedule more than one lesson plan at a time, which would save you a lot of time. But it also allows you to use what we call a preset. And I'll show you that right now. So first off, I have Campbell selected here, and these are all of her active lesson plans within this tool. So I'm going to click on Edit, and I'm going to add that Reading 1 plan to this. So I'll go ahead and check the box for that. Then I'm going to click on Preset. And now what a preset is, first off, you'll notice that this looks a lot like the calendar view, except these don't have specific dates. This is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And what these are preset blocks of time that I've created when I want the scheduler to assign that corresponding course. So for example, I have presets for Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. for Ancient History 1. And then from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., I have spelling. And then I have all these other courses kind of set up for preset blocks of time. So what I'll do is I'll create a new one for Reading 1. It's going to be from 3 to 4 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I'll save that. So now I have a new preset here. Now if I go to the scheduler, what I can do when I schedule these things is, rather than say, I want things to happen on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Thursday, Friday, I can just select the option for preset. And what the scheduler will do is it'll assign, or it'll schedule those items for those preset times that we just looked at there. So first off, I can choose which lesson plans I want to schedule. In this case, I'm going to choose all of these. So there are 7 lesson plans here, and I will continue to day and date. Now, here are the day options. You can choose daily, weekly, monthly, etc. I'm going to choose this option for preset. And then for the start date, I'm going to choose next Monday. And I will continue until next Friday. So I'm just going to schedule 1 week here, next week. And I'm going to use 7 lesson plans, and I'm choosing the preset option. Now, if I go to preview, there you go. I'm previewing 50 items right now. So again, those were 7 different lesson plans, and I'm using the preset times that I have set up, and I'm scheduling just for next week. And so you'll see Ancient History 1 for Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., spelling from 10 to 11. There's 2 items there. First grade arithmetic, 11 to 12. If I go down to 3 to 4 p.m., that's our Reading 1 plan. It's ready to go. If I look at Tuesday from 3 to 4, another Reading 1 item. So with just a couple clicks, I was able to generate 50 assignments for next week. And it's pulling from, like we talked about with the lesson plans, how it's like a stack of papers on your desk. It's pulling the next available paper because it knows, it keeps track of where we are. You'll notice here, this first Reading 1 assignment, this is day 6 of that lesson plan, because as you remember, we already scheduled the first 5 days for Campbell. So now it knows the next one's day 6. And then after that is day 7, and it's scheduling that for next Tuesday. So if I go ahead and select all of these and choose accept, it's going to go ahead and create those assignments for us for next week. This always takes a little bit longer because, again, it's creating 50 assignments at once from 7 different lesson plans, and it's using all of those preset times that we had set up within the lesson plans and preset screen. Okay, so now if we go to the calendar view and we go to next week, check this out. There we go. Campbell has a full agenda for next week, 50 items on here, all at those preset times. Remember, we've got Ancient History 1 from 9 to 10, then spelling, then arithmetic, and from 3 to 4 is all of her Reading 1 assignments. So there it is. So again, thinking about workflow, right? I know I keep bringing that up. A lot of folks have all of their lesson plans already figured out, and you can even do this at the beginning of the year or anytime, really. They have their preset times that they like things to get done, and they set those up. And then at the beginning of the week, Sunday night, for example, they go into this screen here, lesson plans and presets, do a couple of clicks. You saw how quick it was, and we're able to generate all of the items on the agenda for the entire week really quickly. And then their student or themselves are able to see exactly what they need to do. And again, you can go in here as throughout the day or at the end of the day or at the end of the week and mark things complete, reschedule things, grade them. All of that is available to you. So again, probably, kind of showing you probably the most advanced workflow of having all of the lesson plans and the presets ready to go, but you can see how much time that can save you if you have all of that planned ahead of time. Okay, so to recap on lesson plans, we saw an example plan. We created a simple one. We imported a lesson plan from the shared library. And then we scheduled a plan, both using kind of the basic scheduler as well as the more advanced scheduler using those presets. Okay, so real briefly on reports. Like we mentioned before, reports are created as PDF files that you can save, print, or send. And the daily task list, this is a great report to use on a day-to-day basis if you like to have kind of a printed out report of what to do each day. Transcripts and report cards, these can be generated as long as you have at least one completed and graded assignment in a course for that given period. Basically, the logic behind that is you can't really create a transcript or report card if you don't have anything graded. And so as long as you have at least one thing graded and complete, marked teacher complete, you can generate a report card and it'll calculate it accordingly. So let's take a quick look at the daily task list while we're here. So if I jump to the menu and go to daily task list, there are a number of settings on here. I won't go through all of them, but I kind of have it set up the way that I typically work. I can choose what student I want. In this case, I'll choose Campbell. And if I want to specify, just different subjects or courses, in this case, I'll choose all. And then I can choose the date range. So I'm going to choose next week. We'll choose, we'll create a report for Monday through Friday of next week. And then I'll just click generate. And now I can pick up the report, which will download it as a PDF file. And here it is. So this is literally a list of all of the tasks that Campbell needs to do next week, starting with Monday. Again, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., Ancient History 1, and it has all the different parameters that I selected in that previous screen. And then here's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it's a 4-page report as a PDF file. I can print this out, put it on a bulletin board or on a clipboard and kind of work through it that way. So just another way that you can use and manipulate the same data that's within the program. All righty. So we're wrapping up here. Circling back on workflows, just again to recap. You can certainly do just create single assignments on a daily basis like we did at the beginning. Nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of even long-time Homeschool Tracker users that are still doing it that way, and that's perfectly fine. And also, like we mentioned, you can do this kind of in reverse. So if you don't necessarily want to use Homeschool Tracker as a planning tool, meaning you don't really need to put things in there ahead of time, you could just do it after the fact. At the end of each day or at the end of each week, kind of look back at your notes, create all the assignments for the work that you and your student did do. And that way it's all getting stored in one consistent manner so that you can generate those reports at the end of the semester, those report cards, those transcripts, that sort of thing, or the attendance reports if you need to submit those. It's nice to have all of that kind of consistent and in one place. You can also do multiple assignments on a weekly or daily basis and kind of schedule your week that way. Or you can dive into lesson plans like we looked at. And you don't necessarily need to do lesson plans for everything. You could have some courses that have lesson plans, and then you sprinkle in some single assignments here or there, however you like to do it. Or you can go kind of all in and do lesson plans for everything and presets and the whole deal and kind of schedule everything all at once. So I think that kind of shows you just the wide range of capabilities of Homeschool Tracker and how you can use it in so many different ways. And so that's really what excites me, is that we're constantly seeing new and different ways that folks are using the program and being effective in their homeschool. So with that, we'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to submit those just by clicking on that Q&A button there in your viewer, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions you may have. Oh, before we jump into questions, I will say if you are a current user of Homeschool Tracker and you've joined us tonight, I think we may have mentioned this in an email, but we will go ahead and extend your subscription an extra month for free on us. We just do that as a way to say thank you for spending some time with us to learn more about the program, because we know just how much that means, that you are committed to learn and to really give Homeschool Tracker a fair shot. So we really appreciate that. And to show that appreciation, we like to give you guys back a free month of Homeschool Tracker. So what we'll do at the end of this is kind of pull a report of everybody that attended, and that way we can modify your subscription and extend it an extra month. If you're not a current subscriber, we'll see that there as well, and we'll shoot you an email and give you a free month if you're looking to give it a try. Okay, so Pamela is asking, so I'm just starting on HST. When I'm ready, how can I easily add backdated data for purpose of a complete transcript? That's a great question. And then it looks like you have a follow-up. Do I have to add each assignment? So a lot of work? No, you don't. This is really the beauty of it. So as I mentioned here, transcripts and report cards can be generated as long as you have one completed and graded assignment in a course. So the trick for this, and to Pamela's question, is let's say you're just starting with Homeschool Tracker and you've been using something else, or you've just been keeping track in a binder or whatever previously. How do you add in all of that previous work or those previous grades so that your transcript or your report card can be consistent? Well, all you have to do is create one assignment for that course, for that school year, and grade it and mark it complete. So let's just use this as an example. Let's say, here we are with Campbell, and let's say I wanted to create, a grade for a course for something that she did last year. All I would need to do is create a single assignment, right? So let's just choose Campbell. I would just need to create a single assignment. Let's say it was for this physical science course. All I would have to do is create a single assignment and give it the final grade of the course. So likely you have the grade already. Let's say she got a 96 out of 100 for that course, for the entire course, right? All I would need to do is create one assignment with that final grade and save it. Oops, I didn't give it a date. And save it. And now if I were to generate a report card or a transcript, it will pull that final grade because there's only one, and it'll put that on the transcript or the report card for that course. So for example, if I actually generated a report card right now for Campbell, let's see if this works. You will notice that physical science shows up, and she had a 96%, an A in physical science. And you know that because I only added one assignment for her. So it's not like it doesn't need to calculate anything. It doesn't need to average it out. It doesn't need to do anything because there's only one grade. So it's just going to show that. And so if you're looking to add previous year's worth of work, all you have to do is just go to that semester in the calendar, in the agenda. So let's say I wanted to add work from 2015. I would just go ahead and pick a date in 2015, that I know falls within the semester I'm looking at. Now I would create an assignment for the course that it needs to be in. Now I would give it that final grade and mark it complete. And then I know now when I generate the transcript, it's going to pull that final grade. So hopefully that makes sense, Pamela, in terms of how you would add previous year's data. There's also a little guide on our help site. Just jump to that real quick. Yes, here we go. Creating a transcript for prior years. There's just a little guide here. It basically outlines the same thing that we were just talking about, but you could certainly follow along there as well. Okay, so let's see. Some other questions are coming in here. Lola is asking, do I have to add the time when creating assignment? What if I want to print a daily task list? No, you don't need to add the time when creating assignment. So let's jump back here. So actually, you'll notice this physical science assignment that I created, I didn't have a time. There's no start or end time. And so what it does is it just puts it in this all day section of the calendar. So that's essentially what happens if you don't put a time, a start and end time in an assignment, which happens all the time. Folks, don't necessarily want to have specific times. So you could certainly not use those. Again, remember the only required fields for an assignment are the student, the subject, course, and the date. Time is entirely optional. Okay. So Brooklyn is asking, this is probably mentioned in the lesson plan webinar that I will watch ASAP, but when creating a lesson plan, is there a way to insert extra quizzes or other random assignments and then push all the other assignments down one day if I don't want more than one quiz assignment on that day? Yes, Brooklyn, that is a great question. It is answered in the lesson planning webinar, but I'll quickly just kind of show you as well for other folks. Let's take a look at that sample lesson plan that we created. So basically what Brooklyn's asking, let's say I've got this lesson plan here and there's 11 days worth of lessons in here. I wanted to insert something like right in here. How would I do that? What I could do, there's a couple different ways, so it really just depends. I can renumber these, first of all. So let's say I want to insert 3 items in here or something. I could just start with day 6 through 11 and I can just choose action. And I can say change day number. And I can say change all items on the list starting with the day number 6. Yeah, so I can say starting with day 6, let's change that. And I can increase the day numbers by a certain increment, or I can reset them using a different pattern. A lot of different options here. So I'm going to just increase them by 3. And I'll continue to preview. And then now I get a quick preview. So 6 becomes 9, 7 becomes 10, etc. So let's select all of those and choose accept. So now I have this gap here from 5 to 9. So if I were to go ahead and create new items, I could just give them days number 6, 7, 8, if that makes sense. That's kind of clunky, I will admit. There are other ways to do that, and so definitely check out that lesson planning webinar. Like, for example, I could have just created all the new items first and then changed their day numbers and then moved the other ones. But I will say the lesson planning webinar gives you some great strategies so that issue doesn't really become an issue. Because what I tend to do and recommend is that I like to create the lesson plans in a way that essentially puts all of the what I call the tentpole events in the lesson plan first. So things like tests, quizzes, that sort of thing, and then I kind of filter in the gaps with the kind of the day-to-day lessons. And so I won't go into that too much detail tonight because, again, check out that lesson planning webinar because we outline that considerably. But just know there's a lot of flexibility here to not only insert items, but to move things around and to create things in really creative ways. So hopefully that's helpful, Brooklyn. Definitely check out that lesson planning webinar. If you have questions after that, feel free to email us. Happy to help. Okay, Tonya is asking, how would that work for this current year that we haven't completed? Referring to Mrs. Pamela's first question. Let me just look that up again. Oh, so that was in reference to backdated information. So how would that work for this current year that we haven't completed? So if I think I'm understanding your question right, Tanya, you're asking how would I add previous work for this year that isn't completed yet, meaning the year isn't completed yet. You could simply create assignments for any date. So, if you're just starting with Homeschool Tracker like today, but your school year started in September, for example, you could add any and all assignments you want for previous days, right? So if I go ahead and create an assignment, the date can be anything. So I could go back a month and say, oh yeah, remember, and maybe you have a calendar, like a binder or something already, and you wanted to transpose all that information in here. You could certainly do that. You could be like, oh yeah, on October 3rd, we did this thing, and you can kind of start creating, everything that you did do. If you want to have every single assignment kind of transposed into Homeschool Tracker, you certainly could. Or another strategy, if you didn't really care about every single individual assignment, you just wanted to transfer the grade over, like the current grade, you could kind of calculate what the current grade is from your previous system, whether it be a binder or another program or something, and just create one assignment with that grade, right? And then kind of go from there. That's one way to do it. That could get a little tricky depending on how you're grading things, for example. Like if you're doing it on a cumulative point total or on an individual assignment basis, which again, it gets a little complicated, but just meaning there's a lot of different ways that you could approach it. So hopefully that answers your question, Tanya. Okay, anonymous viewer asks, I want to break my school year into trimesters. Is that possible? Yeah, absolutely. So if I go to the school years and terms page within the manage list section of the menu, this is where you can create your school year and the terms within the school year. So I have a school year here, 2016 to 2017, and I have it starting on July 4th and ending on July 3rd of the next year. Clearly, I just kind of made that really quickly, but we didn't really cover this, but I'll quickly kind of go over it. Let's just change these dates to something more realistic. So let's say we started on September 1st and we're ending on May 31st. So creating a school year, 2016 to 2017 is what I'm calling it. The start date was September 1st and the end date was May 31st of 2017. And now this little slider here allows me to create the number of terms within that school year. So I could have it be one giant term, like one big semester, 2 terms, 3 terms, or 4 terms. And so anonymous viewer is asking if she wants to break it into trimesters. I could just choose 3 here, and I'm breaking it up into 3 terms. And it kind of breaks it up evenly just using this tool, but you can go in here and edit these dates to be specific if you like. So I could say, I want the first trimester to go from September 1st to October 30th, and you can put that in there. So however you want to do it, you could certainly set it up that way. So hopefully that answers your question. Go ahead and save that. Okay, Emily is asking, what is the point of the day number? That's a great question, Emily. So the day number, if you recall, shows up only in the lesson plan. And I apologize if I probably skipped over this, but day number, because lesson plan items don't have a date associated with them, we need to understand the order of them. And the day number is there to kind of help dictate the order of the lesson plan items. Now, rather than just call it like number 1 and number 2 and number 3, we use the day number because you could have more than one lesson plan item happen on a given day, right? So actually, if we look at that Abeka arithmetic plan, this is a good example here. Because on day 1, meaning day 1 just means the first day that you use this lesson plan. That could be a Monday, it could be a Tuesday, it could be a Thursday, it doesn't even matter. It's just the first day. Day 2 is literally that. It's the second day. Now, day 2 doesn't mean the next day, meaning like if you did day 1 on Monday, it doesn't mean you're doing day 2 on Tuesday. It just means the next day that you're using this lesson plan. And that's why there's power behind lesson plans, meaning that you could use a lesson plan item each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or you can just do it just on Mondays, right? And so that's why it's pretty cool because, day 1 and day 2 are broad enough that you can kind of schedule them however you like. So anyway, day 1, is day 1 of this lesson plan. Day 2 is the second day you use this lesson plan. Day 3 is the third day you use this lesson plan. And if you notice, when we get down to day 12, there's 2 day 12s. That tells me that on the 12th day of using this lesson plan, you're not going to just do one thing. You're going to do 2 things. So you're going to do an oral test, and you're going to do, in this case, probably a written test. You might also create lesson plans where you'll have one item that's like a workbook item and another item that's like a reading item. Because, on day 5 of some lesson plan, you might need to read pages 100 to 110 in this book, and you might also need to do pages 5 through 6 in this workbook, right? And so by creating a lesson plan using these day numbers here, it gives you the ability to have more than one item on a given day. So hopefully that answers your question, Emily. Tanya says, thanks. Cool. Sounds like that worked. Okay, so Emily's now asking, is there a way to change the grading on the assignment from the 0 possible earned numbers to a letter grade instead? No, there isn't. And the reason for that is because, I'll show you real quick. I'm trying to think of a good way to explain this. I guess the reason is because if you just had a letter grade here, A, B, C, D, for example, or F, it would be pretty difficult for us to calculate an overall grade, right? So that works well if you're just grading one assignment in isolation, right? Like, oh, you got an A on that, or oh, you got a B on that. But over the course of a semester or a year, you might have 100 assignments, right? And if you have, 12 of them were A's and like 50 of them were B's, and then the remainder were C's, like how do you could average it and then come up with like a B, I guess, or something. But really you need that point total, you need the number to calculate a proper grade, right? So what you can do is you can modify your grading scale though. And this is where again, Homeschool Tracker can be really flexible. So there's the default grading scale, which is kind of what you would expect. The letter grade A is anything from 90% or higher. B is 80% to 90 or to 89%, etc. Now, if you wanted to create a grading scale that was a little bit more simplistic, you could certainly do that here. Modifying how these things are calculated. But again, that would be totally up to you in terms of how you want to calculate things. So hopefully that's helpful, Emily. Okay, Brooklyn's asking, when rescheduling, is there an option to push all assignments forward one day, or does that double up the assignment for the next day? That's a great question. So what we'll do is I'll demonstrate rescheduling for you guys. So this comes up a lot, in terms of how you might reschedule something. So here's that week next week, right, where we have those 50 assignments. So probably the quickest and easiest way to reschedule something is simply just clicking and dragging, right? I could just move that to there, move that to there, right? But that's not really what Brooklyn's asking, like that works well if I'm just rescheduling one assignment. But if I needed to click and drag all 50 of these, that wouldn't really be possible, right? So what I want to do is go to the list view. And I want to view next week. And so these are those 50 assignments for next week, right? Now there's 2 scenarios that typically come up when rescheduling, right? So let's say, for example, Campbell was sick on Monday. So she's sick on December 5th. Now, what I can do is say, okay, she's sick on Monday. I want to push everything forward a day, kind of like what Brooklyn's asking. What I'll do is simply select everything, right? So I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to choose Action, Reschedule. And what I'll do here is I'm going to just change the start date. So instead of starting on December 5th, all of these items are going to start on December 6th and kind of move together. And I'll click Preview. And this preview basically shows, okay, the existing date is Monday, the new date is Tuesday. Existing date is Tuesday, the new date is Wednesday for all 50 items. So I'll go ahead and select all and choose Accept. And so now this is more, easier to view on the calendar. Now you'll notice Monday is now wide open and everything got pushed forward a day. It even spills over to the following week. And so that's why another reason why I recommend only scheduling like a week or two at a time, right? Because you can imagine if you had scheduled your entire year at a time, I just had 50 assignments just for this week. If I had scheduled the whole year, I'd probably have thousands of assignments. And to push all of those forward a day is certainly possible. You can do it, but it would be kind of clunky, right? So that's one scenario, right, for rescheduling. So now let's say she's sick again on Tuesday. And instead of pushing everything forward another day, because I don't want to get too far behind, I could just push forward Tuesday and kind of double things up on Wednesday, right? So that she could get caught up. So let's do that. So what I'll do is I'll just select Tuesday's items. These are all 12/6, yep. And I'll choose Action, Reschedule. And I will move these to Wednesday in Preview. And now you'll get a preview of that. And what you'll see here, these green items, these just say existing item, meaning it's the system's basically saying, hey, you're kind of doubling up. There's a lot of conflicting events here on Wednesday, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and select them and then choose Accept. And now if I look at the calendar, you'll notice that I bumped everything on Tuesday over to Wednesday. And so now Campbell doubled up on Wednesday, but now at least she'll get caught up so we don't lose another day. So Brooklyn, hopefully that answers your question on rescheduling. Okay, so Emily's asking, I created a grading scale, so I was hoping the letter grades could be entered to go with the grading scale. I tend to struggle with trying to figure out how many points to give for my students because their schoolwork goes off of mainly a letter scale. Totally get that, Emily. I mean, what's probably beneficial is what you could do. Let me just think this through real quick. Yeah, I mean, I would just make it out of 10, right? I would just make everything out of 10. So, like, for example, Emily, if you are grading this assignment here, just make everything possible out of 10. And if you want it to be an A, just give it a 9. If you want it to be a B, give it an 8. If you want it to be a C, give it a 7. If you want it to be a D, give it a 6. If you want it to be an F, give it a 5. So I know that's not the answer to your question, but that's the best I think that we can do in that, the points possible and points earned have to be numeric values. We can't put in A, B, or C directly into one of these things, just because of the way that the system calculates things. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm trying to think of another creative solution that might work with the grading scales, but I think that's probably going to be your best bet. Just make everything out of 10, and then that way you just always know, a 9 or above is an A, an 8 is a B, a 7 is a C, a D, a 6 is a D, etc. So hopefully that's helpful. Let's see. Emily is asking, is there a way to do a different point system for test quizzes and assignments so that it would have the test quizzes counting for more points than assignments? Yes. So there's a couple ways to do that. And so again, this is why, Emily, we use points, right? Because what you're basically saying is you want tests to count for more than assignments, right? And there's a couple ways to do that. The most simple way is kind of like how we've been showing tonight. So like an assignment, I would just make out of 10 points, right? And so the assignment is worth 10 points. And in this case, she got 9 out of 10. If this was a test, it might be worth 50 points, right? And then she got like a 40 out of 50. And so that's why when I was talking about generating a cumulative grade at the end of the semester, that's why using points is probably the preferred method, right? Because if an assignment is only worth 10 points, but a test is worth 100 points, automatically the test is worth more than the assignment, right? because if you average everything out on a point basis, if you got 90 out of 100 points on a test, and you got 9 out of 10 points on an assignment, that 90 points is worth a lot more than that 9 points, right? So hopefully that makes sense. There's another way to do that with what we call weighted grading. But let me just show you something real quick. Because in the program options, if you go to the grading tab on here, there are a couple different ways to calculate grades. We have the averages, which is kind of the traditional way. And it gives you, if you click on the little question mark here, it'll tell you what that means. Basically, each assignment for a subject course is given a percentage grade. Then those percentages are averaged together within a term to generate a term grade. Okay, so in this case, if you're using the averages, then what you're asking in the solution I just gave you would not work. Meaning, it's basically going to say, okay, you got a 97% on that assignment, and oh, you got a 97% on that test. Then for the class, you just got a 97%, right? In that case, it weights the assignment and the test the same. Now, if you choose this other option, sum of possible earned, this says a term grade is generated by dividing the total points earned for all completed assignments in a subject course by the total points possible for those assignments. So if you choose this option, then if you had 100 points for a test and 10 points for an assignment, that 100 points for the test would be worth a lot more, 10 times more than the assignment that's only worth 10 points, right? Because it's going to sum all of the points possible. So in that case, 110 points possible, and it's going to divide it by the number of points earned. In that case, if you got 90 and 9, it's going to be divided by 99, right? So those are those two ways to calculate the grades. Now, for those of you that might be interested and are still listening at this point, you can still use this averages thing and get the desired result that Emily is looking for. You just need to use what's called weighted grading. And so this averages is kind of the traditional way to calculate grades. I don't even know if it's traditional anymore. It was a long time ago, but I see more and more people just doing the sum of points possible and earned. But if you like the averages method, another way to go about kind of weighting grades, some grades more than others, is by using weighted grading. And I'll just real quickly, I'll show you how that works. It's within the courses screen. And the nice thing about weighted grading is, this is probably the reason why weighted grading even exists, is because you can do it at the course level. Okay, so you might have some courses that everything's the same. It doesn't matter if it's a quiz or a test or a lesson or whatever. Everything's just the same. You might have other courses where, well, it's not quite the same. Maybe there's labs. We're doing a science course and like the lab is worth a lot more than an assignment, whatever. Depends, right? You can set up weighted grading on a course level. So if I go to a course, I can check the box for use weighted grading. Okay. And so what weighted grading does is it allows you to select an activity. And remember, the activities come straight from your activity list. So things like lesson, midterm, oral test, quiz, whatever you've created, right? So I can choose lesson. All right. I'm going to say lessons overall are worth 20% of the grade, right? Add a new record. And then I'm going to say the midterm is worth 30% of the grade, okay, which is a lot in this, compared to the lessons. And then I'm going to say the final exam is worth 50% of the grade, right? So that adds up to 100 right there. So as you're going about creating assignments, when you select lesson and you start doing those, all of those cumulatively are going to count for 20% of the grade. When the midterm comes along, that one's going to count for 30% of the grade. And when the final exam comes along, that one's going to count for 50% of the grade. And so that's how you set up weighted grading. This obviously, maybe not obviously, but it's a little bit more advanced, of course. When you get to high school, there's definitely a lot of courses that this may apply. And like I said before, there's different ways you could do it, right? You could do it based off the points, or you could do it, based off of the weights like this. So hopefully that is helpful. I'm not going to save that here. Okay. So Emily says, thank you. I was wondering how to choose between the two ways of calculating grades. Okay, great. Weighted grading is actually what I was wanting before, and I didn't understand what it meant first. Okay, cool. So great, Emily, I'm glad that helped clear things up. If you have any questions going forward, please don't hesitate to email us at support@homeschooltracker.com. I know there's a lot that goes into this, and one of the things too, it's kind of one of those things you want to figure out ahead of time, right? Before you just start going at it, because the school year goes by quick, and if you're entering grades in one way, and then at the end of the year you realize, oh shoot, I should have done it a different way. It can certainly be a lot of work to go back and fix things. So more than happy to help you sort things out ahead of time, so that that you're kind of setting yourself up for success. Okay, so any other questions? These have been great questions. Thank you guys for participating. Like I mentioned before, if you've been online for the webinar, we will go ahead and take a look at your account and give you a free month of Homeschool Tracker, totally on us, because I know just how we just really appreciate you taking some time out of your week to learn more about it. Erica's asking, can you print assignments for each student? Yeah, there's a couple of ways to do that. So one way, probably the way that I would normally recommend, is the daily task list. So just like we showed you before, you can select your student. And so I can do one for Campbell, generate that daily task list, and then I could switch this and then do one for Manning and generate his daily task list and then print those out. That's probably the easiest way. The other way is I can do it from the calendar view. So if you didn't need all of the information, if you just wanted kind of a snapshot, you can kind of set up, you could choose just to view Campbell, for example, and then kind of set up the view the way that you want, and then export that to a PDF and then print that off. But I think the daily task list is probably your best bet, because it's literally just a list of all of their assignments. So hopefully that helps, Erica. Emily's asking, is there a way to let a student message the teacher a question? Not necessarily. There isn't like a messaging platform or mechanism built into Homeschool Tracker. I'm just trying to think if there's another way to do it, but not within the program. No, it might be helpful if you needed to do something to have like another kind of system in place, whether it just be email, for example, or if you were using some kind of chat program, you could do that as well. One thing you could do that I know a lot of folks do is you could put notes in here, right? So in this case, I don't have notes enabled, but if I go to program options, one of the optional fields is notes. So I can turn that on. Yeah, of course, you can use any field you like. But when you're in an assignment, you could simply put notes in here like, what does this mean? Where you could essentially like just add little notes to an assignment, right? And it keeps track of it in that, like, it's all kind of in one place. Obviously, it doesn't give the other person a notification that you put a note there, but that is just another place you could store things. Like if you have questions about something, or let's say, for example, your student did email you and say, hey, I have a question about this assignment. What does this mean? Blah, blah, blah. You as a teacher could go and put it in the notes field here, or in the directions field, and then reply to the email and say, hey, got your question. I add some clarifying information to the assignment. Check it out. It's in the directions field, or it's in the notes field. That way, it's kind of all contained in one place, which might be helpful. I don't know. And it's there for future reference as well. So you don't necessarily have like a separate email, with information, and it's separate from your Homeschool Tracker information. So hopefully that helps, Emily. Brooklyn says, thank you. This has been a huge help. Thank you, Brooklyn. Appreciate you joining us. Erica's asking, sorry, I missed some of the earlier video. How do you put in field trips, or do they have to go in as assignments? So yeah, Erica, we covered this a little bit earlier. Essentially, assignments are really everything within Homeschool Tracker. We use the term assignments pretty generally, but an assignment is really, it's anything that you want to keep track of over time. And it's anything that you are basically telling your student that they need to do, right? So that could be a field trip, it could be a lesson, it could be a quiz, a test, anything. And so we use this activity field to determine what that is. So this is an assignment. And so for activity, you'll notice all these different things: experiments, final exam. These are all things that you can put in, right? And field trip could be one of them. I don't think I have that here. So I could create one right now. I could call this field trip. And so I'm now creating an activity called field trip. If I save that, now it's a field trip, and I can then keep track of it that way. So that's how we recommend putting in field trips. Everything goes in as an assignment. The only thing only things that are not assignments are these other activity or these other items here. So like an appointment isn't really an assignment because you're not really keeping track of it. Attendance is not an assignment because that's just a record. A chore, I can see chores going either way. We keep them separate here, but you could certainly, if you wanted to create assignments for chores, you could. But chores are probably not graded unless you're really into that. But chores can be here, and then days off obviously are not assignments. So we have chores as kind of a separate item within the program. Okay, Eric is asking, okay, thank you. When will there be another one of these webinars? Well, first off, Erica, we will email you a replay of this webinar. So we've been recording this, and we'll send off that recording to you as soon as it's ready. So I would recommend watching that. But then the other place you could check out is if you just go to our website and go to support and then the training center, you will see the upcoming training events. So this is tonight's, obviously, and when this is over, we'll add the next one on there. It'll probably be in a few weeks. We'll try to do one before Christmas, and you'll see it there, and you can register for that if you like. But you can also see replays of all of our previous events here, including our lesson planning webinar. But again, we will email you a link to this recording when it's available. Okay, Lola's asking, this may have been answered already, but can the students log in to see their assignments and mark them once they have been completed? Yeah, they can. I don't think we covered that yet, so I'll show you that. So from the subscription and users page here in the menu, you can create student accounts. So right here, these are user accounts. And for every student that you have, you can create an account for them to log in. So I've already created one for Campbell, but if you wanted to create one for your student, you would see them here. And basically, let me just see it real quick. Okay. You find your student here and double click on him. And then where it says active, you just choose yes. And then you can give them a username and a password and set up the permissions for them. So, you know, if you want them to be able to view appointments and chores and, you know, do all these different things, you can set up all these different permissions. So I'll show you Campbell's here because I have that already set up. I have her basically locked down, so she can't do anything. I think I had that set up for a test in a different webinar. But you know, in this case, I'll let her add and edit different fields in the assignment. So let's see, I can have her. You were asking, can they mark them once they've been completed? Yeah. So just trying to see here. Okay. Yeah. So I could, I think, actually, if I have it totally locked down like this, where it can't really do much, I'll show you what that does. So I'm going to log out. Now log in as Campbell test. So when I log in as Campbell, you'll notice there's not really like a whole lot to do here, right? Because I'm logged in as a student. And so if I go to the calendar view, I can see all of my assignments that I have to do. And if I open one, I can see everything, but you'll notice I can't click on it. I can't edit any of this stuff, right? Because I've turned off a lot of those permissions, but I can mark it complete as a student right there. So let's say I'm Campbell, I'm doing my work here, I'm done, boom, marked it complete, I'll save it. And now if I go back in and log in as my teacher account, I already forgot which one that was. Was this one? No. There it is. See, this one's already marked student complete, right? So I know now that Campbell thinks that she's done with that. So I can go in and check her work and mark it complete as a teacher and grade it. Now, this is where these filters come in handy, right? Because if I'm the teacher, I don't even care about this stuff, right? Because depending on your students' grade level and kind of if they're self-directed or whatnot. But like if I've already created the work for them, I just want to come in here and just view the things that are completed by the student so that I can go in and grade it and mark it complete. So I could go to completion status as my filter and just see things that are marked student complete. So my only job, is to come in here at the end of the night and say, oh, okay, she marked this complete. Let's see if it's actually done and give it a grade, and boom, now I've done my work, right? So that's kind of fun from a teacher perspective, is you can just change your filters here to only view things completed by the student, and then what essentially is in your inbox to kind of grade. Obviously, that depends on your workflow and how you like to use the program, but that's one way that I know a lot of folks do it. So hopefully that answers your question, Lola. Okay, lots of good questions. Eric is asking, what about adding online link to assignment like spelling, city, etc.? Yeah, you can add links to assignments. Let me see if I have that turned on. Yeah. So here's an assignment, links right here, right? So you can add a new record, and I can make the link. Let's just link to Google, and the caption is Google. Right. So now I've added a link to this assignment. So now when Campbell sees it, she can just click on that link and it goes to Google. You can also do that within the directions field. So here is a link to your reading, let's say. And then if I select that text and click on this little link button here, insert hyperlink, I can link this text to a URL. Let's just do that. I'll say I want to open a new window and save it. And so that's another way to do a link, right? So now here's a link to your reading, and it can click it and it'll go straight to it. So hopefully that answers your question, Erica. Lola says thanks. All righty. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up now. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. I know I've said that a bunch, but really do appreciate it. And like I mentioned before, we will send a recording of this to each and every one of you once it's available. And then also for those of you that are current subscribers, we'll extend your subscription a month for free on us. And if you're not a current subscriber, we'll shoot you an email. And if you're interested in giving it a try, we'll get you a free month on us as well. So thank you guys so much again for joining us. We really appreciate it. And again, don't hesitate to reach out. Email us at support@homeschooltracker.com. Again, thank you so much and have a great night. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks.